Hello everyone, this is Nitpicking Nerd, and I just watched the first episode of Star Trek Lower Decks, and my reaction to it is, well, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was as annoying as the trailer made it out to be. All the things I was complaining about, they are in the show, and I do still think they are annoying. However, not the whole show is like that, so I think whoever made the trailer really picked maybe the worst parts and all kinds of jokes that just weren't funny, but in the actual episode there were moments that I did find not laugh out loud funny, but I did find them a little bit comedic and entertaining. And also the visual style, I talked about that even from the trailer. I do like it because it's very similar to the TNG era style, which is my favorite one from all of Star Trek. And they even got all the little details right. You know, aliens in the background, and some crew members were wearing a Geordie's visor for some reason. I think more than one, at least two women that I noticed in different uniforms were wearing the visor, so I guess a lot of people were born blind, or maybe they got injured during the Dominion War or something, and so a lot of people needed the visor now suddenly. Also there's the cyborg guy who we don't yet know exactly what happened with him. They said that he's a recent cyborg. And by the way, I don't remember any of the names of the characters yet, so I will make up my own names as usual. There's Ensign Purple Hair, there's the Michael and Tilly hybrid, because she's a combination of both of those characters in my opinion. Like, she has the physicality of Michael and the personality of Tilly, and on steroids, and so this is probably the worst part of the show, just as we saw in the trailers. I thought she was extremely annoying and usually not even funny. The jokes I did enjoy had nothing to do with her, and so I think that's the worst part. Too crazy, too over the top, too annoying, too unrealistic. The show overall is not realistic, meaning the humor is bizarre and crazy, and so you cannot really view this show as part of the continuity of Star Trek, so you shouldn't really look at it like that if you want to enjoy it. And you know, I do want to enjoy it, and I also have another reason for wanting it to be good. As I told in previous videos, I actually have a small nephew who just turned 3 years old, and I'm already thinking of how to introduce him to Star Trek. He already knows the ships and he loves the ships and all of that, so having a cartoon might be a good way to start. However, this cartoon, I don't think it really fits for children, because they have, you know, bloody gore. They show people getting injured and gets bloody, and people's hearts are taken out, and there's some subtle nudity and all kinds of they have some cursing, even though I think they bleeped it out, so it's not really fit for small children. Also, you know, as role models, these characters are not really that good compared to the old Star Trek shows. The way they behave, the way they are irresponsible, all that kind of stuff. Maybe they will deal with these topics later on in the show, hopefully, but as it is now, it's not really inspiring kids to be good and all of that, so I don't think this is a good show for kids. Even in the intro, they show that the ship is running away. They show us that there's a Romulan fleet fighting Borg cubes, and this ship arrives, looks at it, and then runs away, which was kind of funny, I admit, but when you think about it, wait, the Romulans are supposed to be their allies in this time period, because according to the Stardate, it's apparently after the Dominion War and after Nemesis, and so the Romulans should be their allies. They became allies during the Dominion War, and then later on in Nemesis, Shinzon took over, but then the good Romulans defeated him, and they said something in the end of the movie about peace negotiations with the Romulans, and even Worf said that the Romulans fought with honor. And so the Romulans are supposed to be their allies right now, and yet they don't help them out in that war, and you know, their Borg also are a threat to you, so isn't that in the best interest of everyone to fight them? So no, they just escape and leave the Romulans to fight them on their own, and you know, the Borg might assimilate their cloaking devices and then use it against Starfleet, but no one cares. They don't even bother to launch a few photon torpedoes at the cubes before they run away. You know, some after torpedoes at least would be a nice gesture, but no, they just run away. And they also show in the intro the ship is incompetent, it kind of crashes into everything and it almost gets destroyed every second. So apparently they are going for that kind of humor of everybody being incompetent, including the senior crew. And I think that's okay if we accept that this is just a parody, it's not part of continuity, it's a separate thing which is a parody of it, then I'm okay with that. And you know, I used to do parodies like that myself. I used to do all those edits of Star Trek. If you look up a parody TNG edit, you'll see about 400 such videos that I made in which I was doing exactly this. I was making Star Trek TNG look as if they're all incompetent or evil. It was all upside down version of the show, and so that was the humor because it's so unlike Star Trek. And now we have this cartoon which is kind of like that, and so part of me did enjoy some of these elements because it's the same kind of humor that I like. And they had that scene in that bar of the ship in which crazy stuff started happening, and yet the cyborg guy was on a date with a lady, and they were behaving as if all that crazy stuff is just a normal thing which happens every week. And so they continued their date while that crazy stuff is going on. That was kind of funny. I think I even made that exact same kind of joke in one of my edits when crazy stuff was happening in 10 forward, and yet some people just continued as if it's normal. They just shrugged it off. I think Riker was just looked at it and continued drinking as if that's normal. So that's the kind of jokes that I used to do in my videos, and so I think the only way to enjoy this show is simply to look at it as purely a parody and not any kind of official Star Trek. Otherwise it would be horrible on many levels, which I will keep analyzing. So the ship is totally incompetent and cowardly. They don't help out the Romulans, who are their allies against the Borg. The animation itself was good, and again, that's one of the things I did like in the show. The Borg cubes did look like the Borg cubes, the Romulan ships look like the classic Romulan ships from TNG. The only minor mistake was that when the Borg were firing, it looked like a regular beam and not that tractor beam kind of weapon they always used in TNG, so that's my minor nitpick of it. Also in the intro they showed that when the ship is at warp, some kind of space creature is attached to it and is kind of draining its power to itself, so I did kind of like that. And as for the design of the ship, it still looks stupid. They didn't really explain why it has to be that way, that people can only get to the drive section through the nacelles. But it kind of fits the tone of everything being incompetent, and so maybe the ship was badly designed and it's part of the joke. At least they showed on the computer screen the internal map of the ship, and we see that there is a turbolift going through those pylons into the nacelles, and so at least we have an explanation of how they can get there. So I did appreciate that, and I do appreciate a lot of the attention to detail to all kinds of little stuff. All the aliens we see in the background, we see someone who looks like Mordok from TNG, and the shuttles look like the TNG shuttles, and we even see what looks like those dune buggies from Nemesis. That Argo dune buggy that Picard was driving, we did see them use them on the planet, and so I did kind of like that, even though I hated the dune buggy in Nemesis, but it's still kind of a nice reference to that. I think visually I do enjoy this show, even though it's a cartoon. As for the characters, I did kind of like some of them. That green lady was a little bit annoying sometimes, but most of the time I kind of like her enthusiasm, that she wants to be there, that she gets so excited, that feels kind of fresh, like that's how you would feel if you go on a starship and all of that. So I did enjoy her attitude. The Michael Tilly hybrid character, that was the most annoying one. Ensign Purple Hair was okay, I guess. I didn't really like or dislike him yet. I guess it's too early to judge. They did show him like he's cowardly and stuff, but I'm okay with that if they show character development, if he overcomes his fears, if he gets better, gets more confident later on. I think that would be nice, and so I don't want to judge the whole show based on one episode. So I guess if they're starting him out that way and then develop him, that would be great. And so they show that he's kind of when he goes on the bridge, he's super nervous and he's kind of lacks confidence, and also they put him in kind of a moral dilemma, which was kind of interesting. The captain of the ship asks him to keep an eye on Michael Tilly and to report it to the captain if she does something against regulations, but she's his friend, and so he doesn't want to betray his friend, and so that was kind of an interesting dilemma that they put the character into. I talked about the cyborg guy already, but I didn't mention that his implant in the head also apparently affects his behavior, his personality, and his device is kind of glitchy, and so sometimes he becomes more robotic and sometimes he becomes more human, and this character seems to be almost like a mashup of Geordi LaForge together with Data, because when the human side takes over, he's kind of shy with women and nervous around women and all of that, just like Geordi was. And the next moment he's suddenly totally robotic like Data, and so it's like a cross between them into one character. So that was kind of interesting and fun in places, especially in that 10 forward scene in which crazy stuff started happening. And he just continued with the date, and he says, oh, that kind of stuff happens every week. That was kind of funny, and so his implant glitching and his personality changing, that adds some kind of unpredictable complexity to the character. And Ensign purple hair kind of reminds me of Fry from Futurama, and maybe it's just his hair looking similar. And also there was a touch of Anakin from the prequels in the holodeck scene, because they go into the holodeck and the green lady doesn't know what sand is, and then he starts to explain to her that it's something that he hates, something annoying, which irritating his skin or something. And so that kind of reminds me, I wonder if that was deliberate reference to Attack of the Clones. And then when he goes away, Michael Tilly activates some kind of program in which he looks at nude bodybuilders or something. So this is kind of that kind of awkward scenes you wouldn't want to show to a small kid. We also get to know the senior staff a little bit, but some of them also seem to be a little bit crazy. There's that guy that I guess is like a parody of Commander Riker, but he's kind of annoying. He's kind of full of himself and kind of overconfident. There's some bald guy. I think there are a few bald guys on the ship, so it's kind of funny how many bald guys there are. I guess really there is no cure for baldness. Or maybe it's simply, a fashion choice. Maybe it's popular to be bald. Maybe because, everybody knows Captain Picard and admire him. Maybe they want to be like him, and so people deliberately go bald and don't want to fix it. But it's a little bit strange, just like how many people are with Geordi's visor on the ship. And the chief of security, I think I would call him Bajoran Worf, because he's basically Worf in every way, but he's Bajoran. When they ask him for suggestions, he immediately says to blow something up and to blow everything up and so on. So he's obviously Worf, but Bajoran. So I will call him Bajoran Worf. There's the cat doctor, who I guess is like a parody of McCoy splashed together with Pulaski, and maybe a little bit of the holographic doctor with the bedside manner. And I find it funny because I remember as a kid I used to watch TOS once in a while, and whenever my father saw the doctor, Dr. McCoy, he called him Kisa, which in Russian means cat. I don't know why. Maybe his eyes and his face looks kind of like a cat. I don't know. So he always called him a cat. And now in this cartoon we have a doctor who is literally a cat, and he's kind of like Bones from TOS. And so I don't know. I just found that a little bit funny. And it's also the character that curses the most and all of that. So again, I'm not sure how well it fits children, and they show all that gory stuff of all the open heart surgeries and stuff like that. And in the beginning of the episode, Michael Tilly cuts off a piece of purple hair ensign's leg off, and it had blood spurting out and all of that. So how can you show that to little kids? I'm not sure. And there's a twist in the end of the episode when it turns out that she's actually the daughter of the captain, which I kind of guessed when I saw that black admiral on the screen, when that captain contacted an admiral and he was also black. And so I was wondering, why are there so many black people in command? And I kind of thought maybe they're all related, maybe they're all the same family, and then that's exactly the twist. And so they are her parents. And it's also funny how the female captain kind of commanded her husband, who is an admiral, so he outranks her, and yet he listens to her. So that was kind of funny, I guess. And the whole attitude of Michael Tilly is kind of anti-authoritarian, and that's something I complained about in all the recent Star Trek shows. And even in the short trek, it appears as if they're kind of pushing the message of being anti-authority, of being a rebel, that being a rebel is a good thing, that you shouldn't listen to your elders or your superiors, you should commit mutiny, you should do what you think is right, and all of that. And I think that's a little bit problematic, especially again if you want it to be a show with role models for kids. I'm not sure that's the correct message. I guess in all the old Star Trek shows, they had that element a little bit once in a while, to show that you shouldn't always follow orders no matter what. You should still analyze the situation yourself and do the moral thing. And so they always had, Kirk and Picard were also kind of rebels when they were given immoral orders by their admirals, or they didn't want to follow the prime directive in a situation in which it would be immoral. And so they often did have that message that you should analyze things for yourself and not just blindly follow orders, which is a good message. But it was always done with logic and not just because authority is bad. And yet in the new Star Trek shows, very often you have that attitude that you should not listen to your superiors, that you should commit mutiny, you are smarter than your superiors. And so it feels a little bit nasty and illogical, and maybe even a bad message to kids in all the new Star Trek shows. And I kind of recognize something like that in this show. They had scenes of Michael Tilly saying that the superior officers don't care about the minor ones, which I guess as a joke it would work because of what we know of the red shirts always dying and no one cares and all of that, but they didn't use it as part of a joke. It was kind of in a serious bit of dialogue, and so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So that's not the attitude we saw, at least in TNG. You know, Picard did care about everyone who died and so on. And even that whole situation that they put Ensign Purple Hair into, of him having to choose between his friends and his captain, and in the end he chooses his friend, not to betray his friend. Isn't that kind of the opposite of the message from the episode The First Duty, in which Picard tried to convince Wesley to basically betray his friends and to admit the truth, because his duty to Starfleet is more important than his loyalty to his friends, especially because, you know, Starfleet is all about the truth and all of that. So hiding the truth and lying, even if it's for his friends, that's still the bad choice in that episode. And yet here it's like the reverse. Here it's like the absolute complete opposite, that you should be more loyal to your friends and not your captain. So is that a good message to send to kids who will be watching this? I'm not so sure. So overall, I think this was a mixed bag. I did enjoy some moments in this episode and also found a lot of other moments annoying. Visually, I liked it. I liked all the attention to detail, like even certain words they use from alien languages, like Chadich was correct and funny, and I think Michael Tilly said that in the end. And in the end of the episode, she suddenly turned into a walking memberberry. Suddenly she started mentioning all kinds of characters from all the Star Trek shows for no reason, like remember Spock, remember Worf, remember Kirk, remember Gary Mitchell. So that was exactly like the member berries from South Park. So that was kind of maybe more annoying than funny. Sometimes all kinds of moments like that are kind of a mix between good references which I like and humor which I don't like. And so overall I'm not even sure how much I liked or disliked such moments. So it's kind of a mixed bag, and so I think it's really too early to judge the whole show. So that's all I had to say about it for today. Let me know what you think and we can discuss it in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.